They thought we were weak because we looked fragile. They thought we were stupid because we fought among ourselves. They thought we were helpless because we had no unified command structure like theirs. The Kethvar Dominion had conquered 17 star systems in the past century, each one falling within months of first contact. Their strategy was always the same: eliminate the military leadership, disrupt command structures, and watch civilizations crumble like houses of cards. But humanity? Humanity was different. When they struck Earth on what should have been a quiet Tuesday morning, vaporizing every major military installation and government facility in coordinated plasma strikes, they expected surrender within hours. Instead, they got something that would haunt their species for generations to come. They got humans with nothing left to lose. No generals. No presidents. No admirals or commanders to issue orders. Just 8 billion angry primates who suddenly remembered why their ancestors had crawled out of caves and conquered their own world with nothing but sharpened sticks and an inexhaustible capacity for spite. The Dominion had made one fatal error in their calculations: they assumed that cutting off the head would kill the beast. They never considered that humanity might be something far more dangerous than a hierarchical organism. They never considered that humanity might be a virus. This is the story of how Earth's children turned the galaxy's greatest predators into prey, one alien at a time, with no orders given and no mercy shown. This is the story of the Commanderless War, and the operative who became legend not through rank or title, but through the simple human trait of refusing to die quietly. The aliens struck first. They would spend the rest of eternity wishing they hadn't. Marcus Chen was halfway through his morning coffee when the sky turned white. The electromagnetic pulse hit first, killing every electronic device within a 1,000-mile radius of each target. Then came the plasma bombardment, precise surgical strikes that turned the Pentagon into a crater of molten glass, reduced NORAD to atomic soup, and erased the UN headquarters from existence in the span of 17 minutes. Marcus set down his coffee mug in his small apartment overlooking Seattle's harbor and watched the distant mushroom cloud rise where Joint Base Lewis McChord used to be. The rational part of his mind, the part trained through 15 years of special operations and 3 tours as a CIA operative, cataloged the implications with clinical detachment. No communications. No command structure. No government. No military leadership. The emotional part of his mind screamed. Sarah was at the base. His wife of 8 years, Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chen, had been conducting a training exercise with her intelligence unit at McChord that morning. The base where she worked, laughed, and planned to retire from in 5 more years was now a radioactive parking lot. Marcus walked to his window and pressed his palm against the glass. The surface felt cool despite the hellish glow on the horizon. Around him, Seattle was already descending into chaos. Car alarms wailed uselessly from vehicles rendered dead by the EMP. People stumbled out of buildings, their phones dark, their connection to the world severed. In the distance, fires began to bloom as emergency services failed to respond to gas leaks and electrical failures. But Marcus wasn't looking at the chaos in the streets. He was looking up. The ships hung there like malevolent stars, dark triangular silhouettes against the morning sky. Alien. Hostile. Real. After decades of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, the question had been answered with orbital bombardment. His secure satellite phone, hardened against EMP in a Faraday cage, buzzed once. Marcus retrieved it from his emergency kit and answered without looking at the caller ID. Chun. Marcus, thank God. The voice belonged to Director Janet Walsh, his handler at Langley. Or rather, his former handler, since Langley was now a smoking crater. Are you secure? Define secure. If you mean alive and undetected, yes. If you mean living in a functional society with a government and military, that's a negative. Listen carefully. We have maybe minutes before they jam everything. Initial assessment shows coordinated strikes on all major military installations, government facilities, and command centers worldwide. Pentagon, Cheyenne Mountain, Langley, Naval War College, Fort Bragg, all gone. London, Beijing, Moscow, all hit simultaneously. We're estimating 97% of global leadership eliminated in the first wave. Marcus closed his eyes. Sarah's face flashed through his mind, her laugh echoing in the sudden silence. Casualties? Unknown, but assume worst case. The strikes were precise, designed to eliminate military capabilities while leaving infrastructure and population mostly intact. Classic conquest pattern. Conquest. The word tasted like ash. So what's the play? Where are we rallying? Static crackled across the line before Walsh's voice returned, weaker now. That's just it, Marcus. There is no rally point. There is no we. As far as I can determine, you might be the highest-ranking operational asset still alive and free in the Pacific Northwest. The phone felt heavy in his hand. 15 years of training, of missions, of taking orders and executing them with precision, and now there was no one left to give orders. Ma'am? You're off the leash, operative. No mission parameters, no extraction timeline, no backup. Walsh's voice grew fainter as the jamming intensified. The Constitution is ash. The government is ash. The military is ash. But the oath remains. Protect and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. How do you do that is now entirely up to you. The line went dead. Marcus stood in his apartment, surrounded by the detritus of normal life. Sarah's coffee mug still sat in the sink. Her running shoes were by the door. Photos of their life together covered the refrigerator, their wedding, vacations, birthdays, anniversaries. 8 years of building something beautiful in a world that made sense. That world was gone. He walked to the bedroom and pulled out the go bag hidden beneath their bed. Inside, cash, precious metals, false identification documents, weapons, medical supplies, and emergency rations. Standard preparation for an operator who understood that civilization was always 3 missed meals away from collapse. He'd just never imagined the collapse would come from space. The building shook as sonic booms echoed across the city. Looking out the window, Marcus saw smaller craft descending from the larger ships, sleek atmospheric fighters conducting reconnaissance sweeps. They moved with the confidence of predators who knew their prey was helpless. They were wrong about the helpless part. Marcus opened his weapon cache and began the familiar ritual of preparation. Glock 19 with extended magazines, suppressor, tactical light. AR-15 with variable optic, suppressor, and enough ammunition to fight a small war. Ceramic body armor. Night vision goggles. Communications equipment. Medical kit. Explosive charges. All the tools of his trade, suddenly, personal in a way they'd never been before. As he dressed in dark clothing and checked his gear, Marcus felt something fundamental shift inside him. For 15 years, he'd been a weapon in service to others, a tool used by those who commanded from comfortable offices while he bled in foreign countries. He'd followed orders, completed missions, and trusted that someone up the chain of command knew what they were doing. Now there was no chain of command. Now there were only dead friends, a murdered wife, and aliens who thought humanity would roll over and die quietly. Marcus shouldered his pack and took one last look around the apartment. This life was over. Marcus Chen, the husband, the man who worried about mortgage payments and anniversary dinners, was gone along with everything else. What remained was something harder, something forged in the furnaces of war and tempered by loss. What remained was an operator with nothing left to lose. He opened the window and stepped out onto the fire escape, moving with practiced silence despite his gear. The streets below churned with confused civilians, but Marcus's attention was focused on the alien patrol craft sweeping the harbor district. They moved in patterns, clearly searching for something. Government facilities, maybe. Military personnel. People like him. Good. Let them search. Let them think they'd won. Let them believe that eliminating Earth's leadership had somehow tamed humanity. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength had never been its leaders. It had always been the monsters it kept on a leash. And Marcus Chen was off the leash now. The first alien patrol rounded the corner of his building just as Marcus disappeared into the maze of alleyways that would become his new battlefield. Behind him, Seattle burned. Ahead of him lay an uncertain future against an enemy with technology centuries beyond Earth's capabilities. But Marcus had advantages the aliens didn't understand. He knew this city like the back of his hand. He knew how to move unseen, how to kill silently, how to turn urban terrain into a weapon. Most importantly, he knew how to hate with the focused intensity of a man who had lost everything. The first alien he encountered was conducting a street-level patrol, a tall bipedal creature in powered armor that scanned the area with multiple sensor arrays. It moved with the confidence of apex predator in what it considered conquered territory. Marcus watched from the shadows of an overturned bus, studying his enemy. 7 feet tall, 4 arms, digitigrade legs that suggested speed and agility. The armor looked advanced but not impenetrable. Everything had weaknesses. Everything could be killed. The alien stopped and cocked its head, sensors sweeping in Marcus's direction. Time slowed as training kicked in. The creature was 40 meters away, well within range for a precision shot, but gunfire would attract more of them. Silent approach was better. Get close. Find the weakness. Strike once, strike hard, disappear. Marcus moved like smoke through the debris-strewn street, using abandoned vehicles and collapsed storefronts as cover. His target continued its patrol, unaware that it was being hunted by something evolution had spent millions of years perfecting, a human predator with both motive and opportunity. 20 meters. The alien paused to examine something on the ground. Marcus could see the segmented joints in its armor now, the places where protection gave way to mobility. Every suit of armor in history had the same weakness. 10 meters. The alien turned, some instinct warning it of danger. Its multiple eyes widened as it saw Marcus emerging from cover, already in motion, already committed to the attack. 5 meters. The alien reached for its weapon, but human reflexes, honed by evolution's ruthless calculations, were faster than alien technology. Marcus's combat knife slid between armor plates at the creature's neck, finding the vulnerable spot where mobility demanded sacrifice. Alien blood, purple and thick, sprayed across the concrete as the creature fell. Marcus was already moving, checking for additional threats, acquiring the alien's weapon and examining its equipment with professional interest. The weapon felt wrong in his hands, designed for a different anatomy, but the principle was universal. Point at target, activate trigger mechanism, hope your enemy died before you did. The rest was just engineering. Marcus dragged the body into a nearby storefront and began the process of learning everything he could about his new enemy. Equipment, anatomy, weaknesses, capabilities. Intelligence gathering had always been his specialty, and this was just another target package, albeit one that had happened to murder his entire world. As he worked, Marcus felt the last vestiges of his civilian life burn away like morning fog. Marcus Chin, the husband, was dead, buried under the radioactive remains of McCord Air Force Base. What remained was something older, something that had been sleeping beneath the surface of civilization, waiting for its moment to emerge. What remained was humanity's gift to an unfriendly universe, the persistence predator, the tool-using killer, the social hunter who never stopped, never quit, never forgave. The aliens had struck first, eliminating Earth's leadership and military capability in a single coordinated attack. They'd probably expected surrender, maybe some scattered resistance that could be easily crushed by superior technology. Instead, they'd awakened something that had been hunting since the dawn of time. And now it was hunting them. Marcus finished his examination of the alien corpse and its equipment, committing everything to memory. He had no backup, no support, no extraction plan. Just his skills, his equipment, and a burning need to make Earth's invaders pay for what they'd taken from him. It wasn't much of a war plan, but it was a start. Outside, more alien patrols moved through the dying city, secure in their superiority, confident in their conquest. They had no idea that somewhere in the shadows, evolution's perfect killer was learning their weaknesses and planning their deaths, one alien at a time. The war for humanity's survival had begun, and its first soldier was a widowed spy with nothing left to lose except his life, and even that only mattered as far as he could spend it purchasing alien blood. Marcus smiled for the first time since the sky had burned, and the expression was terrible to behold. 3 weeks after the first strike, Marcus had become something that existed between human and nightmare. He moved through the ruins of Seattle like a ghost with a grudge, learning the rhythms of the occupation force, mapping their patrol routes, studying their weaknesses. The aliens had designated themselves the HFY Dominion, according to intercepted communications he'd decoded using equipment salvaged from their dead. They were efficient occupiers, establishing control points and processing centers with military precision. They were also dying, one by one, and they didn't understand why. Marcus had claimed 17 kills in those 3 weeks. 17 aliens who had left their posts and never returned, their bodies hidden in the labyrinth of destroyed buildings that had once been downtown Seattle. Each death taught him more about HFY physiology, psychology, and tactics. Each kill brought him closer to understanding how to hurt them where it mattered most. The abandoned Microsoft campus in Bellevue had become his base of operations. The EMP had fried most of the electronics, but the infrastructure remained intact: underground parking garages for concealment, multiple exit routes, and enough abandoned supplies to sustain him indefinitely. More importantly, it was the kind of place the aliens ignored, too large to search thoroughly, too damaged to be immediately useful for their purposes. Marcus sat in what had once been a software development lab, cleaning his weapons by the light of a chemical glowstick. The alien plasma rifle he'd acquired from his third kill lay partially disassembled on the table, its inner workings spread out like the organs of some exotic creature. Understanding their technology was as important as understanding their biology. Both could be turned against them. His comm system, a hybrid creation built from human and alien components, crackled with intercepted HFY transmissions. Marcus had spent 2 weeks learning to decode their language, and what he'd discovered painted a picture that was both terrifying and encouraging. Terrifying because the HFY Dominion was vast. 17 conquered star systems. Hundreds of billions of subjugated beings. Military technology that made humanity's best efforts look like stone knives and bearskins. Encouraging because they were starting to fear Earth. Patrol 779 reporting, the alien voice hissed through his speakers. Sector 12 sweep complete. No sign of the Shadow Killer. Shadow Killer. Marcus almost smiled at the designation. In 3 weeks, he'd become a ghost story told by nervous alien soldiers. The thing that murdered their people and vanished without a trace. The predator that turned hunters into prey. Confirmed, 779. Return to base immediately. Do not conduct solo patrols. Do not investigate anomalies alone. All units maintain battle readiness. Fear. Marcus could hear it in their communications, see it in their patrol patterns. The HFY had come expecting easy conquest and found instead a world that bit back. They'd lost more soldiers in Seattle alone than in most of their previous conquest campaigns, and they couldn't explain why. Marcus could explain it. He was hunting them with advantages they didn't understand. This was his world, his terrain, his rules. Every human instinct honed over millions of years of evolution was focused on a single goal: making the invaders pay. His motion sensors chimed softly. Movement in the parking garage, 2 levels down. Marcus ghosted to his observation post and peered through the scope he'd mounted to watch the entrance. 3 HFY soldiers, fully armed, moving in tactical formation toward his building. They'd found him. Marcus felt the familiar surge of combat adrenaline as he shifted into mission mode. 3 targets, unknown reinforcements, confined space with multiple exit routes. The tactical situation was actually in his favor, despite being outnumbered. The aliens fought like they expected to win through superior firepower and technology. They weren't prepared for human cunning backed by human desperation. He triggered the first surprise from his prepared position. The improvised explosive device, built from civilian chemicals and alien power cells, detonated beneath the lead soldier as it stepped on the pressure plate Marcus had hidden under debris. The blast didn't kill the creature, but it damaged its armor and sent it sprawling across the garage floor. The other 2 immediately took cover and began scanning for threats, their weapons charging with distinctive whines. Marcus was already moving, using the maintenance tunnels he'd mapped during his first week in the building. Silent movement, flanking maneuvers, strike from unexpected angles. Basic infantry tactics that work just as well against aliens as they did against humans. The second soldier died when Marcus dropped through a ceiling tile directly above its position. His combat knife, modified with a vibrating edge using salvaged alien technology, pierced its armor at the base of the skull where protection was minimal. The creature dropped without a sound. The third soldier heard its companion fall and spun toward the noise, weapon raised. It found empty air. Marcus had already rolled behind a concrete pillar, using its own teammate's body as concealment. The alien's multiple eyes darted frantically, searching for a target that wasn't where it expected. Marcus shot it twice with its own sidearm, the plasma bolts punching through armor designed to stop human bullets but apparently less effective against HFY weapons. Another design flaw filed away for future use. The wounded soldier from the first explosion was struggling to its feet when Marcus approached. This one was still alive, still functional. Perfect for what he needed. "Do you understand human speech?" Marcus asked in the broken HFY he'd learned from intercepted communications. The alien's translator device flickered to life. You are the Shadow Killer. I am Marcus Chen, and you murdered my wife." Marcus knelt beside the creature, his knife visible but not yet threatening. "I want to send a message to your commanders. I will tell them nothing, human filth. You misunderstand." Marcus's voice was conversational, almost friendly. "I'm not asking you to betray military secrets. I'm asking you to deliver a statement of intent." He activated his recording device, a piece of human technology that still functioned despite the EMP. "This is addressed to the command structure of the HFY Dominion currently occupying Earth. My name is Marcus Chen. I am a human being, and you have made a mistake." The alien stared at him with all four eyes, confusion and pain evident in its alien features. Marcus continued, his voice steady and calm. "You eliminated our leaders, destroyed our military, and murdered our people because you believed this would make us submit. You were wrong. You removed the restraints that kept us civilized, not the capabilities that made us dangerous. You have awakened something that your species clearly doesn't understand." He leaned closer to the recording device. "Humanity is not a hierarchical organism like your own. We are a swarm intelligence, and you have just kicked the nest. Every death you cause creates more enemies. Every family destroyed births new killers. Every act of cruelty generates fresh hatred. You are not fighting a military anymore. You are fighting a species." The alien tried to speak, but Marcus held up a hand for silence. "This human, this single individual with no rank, no authority, and no backup, has killed 17 of your soldiers in 3 weeks. I am not special. I am not unique. Across this planet, millions like me are learning to hate you with focused intensity. We are studying your weaknesses, stealing your technology, and planning your deaths. We cannot be negotiated with, because you have already taken everything we cared about. We cannot be intimidated, because you have already done your worst." Marcus stood, looking down at the wounded alien. "You have one chance to avoid the nightmare you have created. Leave. Pack your ships and go. Return to whatever hole you crawled out of and never come back. Because if you stay, we will hunt you across the galaxy until your entire species is extinct." That is not a threat. It is a promise from a grieving widower to the creatures that murdered his world. He switched off the recorder and ejected the storage device. "Deliver that message to your commanders. If they're smart, they'll listen." The alien took the device with shaking hands. You would exterminate an entire species?" Marcus thought of Sarah's laugh, of the life they'd planned together, of the children they'd never have. "You started this war by murdering billions of innocents. I'm simply explaining how it's going to end." He helped the alien to its feet, almost gently. "There's a HFY patrol base 6 blocks north of here. Crawl if you have to. Deliver the message. Then, pray that your leadership is smarter than your advanced scouts. Marcus watched the alien limp away into the ruins of his city, carrying humanity's declaration of war to an enemy that still thought in terms of conquest and submission. They were about to learn that some species didn't submit. Some species just got angry. And humanity was very, very angry. Over the following days, Marcus noticed changes in alien patrol patterns. They moved in larger groups now, avoided known ambush sites, and implemented random route changes to prevent predictable targeting. They were adapting to the threat he represented, which meant his message had been delivered and taken seriously. Good. Fear was a weapon as effective as any blade or bullet. But adaptation was a game two species could play, and humanity had been playing it longer than most. Marcus began planning more sophisticated operations, targeting not just isolated patrols but communication nodes, supply depots, and command structures. If the aliens wanted to escalate, he was prepared to show them what escalation looked like when practiced by a species that had conquered its own world through applied violence. His equipment cache grew daily, supplemented by salvaged alien technology and weapons taken from the dead. Marcus had become a collector of alien capabilities, studying each piece of captured equipment to understand its function and potential applications. The plasma rifle could be modified to overload and detonate like a grenade. The communication devices could be hacked to provide real-time intelligence on enemy movements. The armor could be reverse-engineered to provide protection against their own weapons. Every advantage stolen, every weakness exploited, every lesson learned in blood and pain. Marcus established secondary and tertiary bases throughout the Seattle area, each one stocked with supplies and weapons, each one positioned to support different types of operations. He mapped alien facilities and patrol routes, identified key personnel and high-value targets, and began planning operations that would hurt them in ways they couldn't easily adapt to. The HFY had made one fundamental error in their assessment of humanity. They assumed that eliminating leadership would eliminate resistance. They'd studied human military organizations and concluded that cutting off command structures would render human forces ineffective. They had never studied human guerrilla warfare. They had never encountered an entire species that could wage war without orders, without coordination, without anything except burning hatred and improvised weapons. Marcus was about to provide them with a comprehensive education. He opened his tactical planning software, a program he'd written himself using a combination of human code and alien processing systems. On the screen, Seattle appeared as a three-dimensional map marked with enemy positions, patrol routes, supply lines, and potential targets. Each red dot represented an alien presence. Each blue dot represented a planned attack. There were a lot of blue dots. Marcus Chen had been an intelligence operative, a spy who worked in shadows and reported to others. That man was dead, buried under the ruins of a world that no longer existed. What remained was something new, humanity's first soldier in a war that would span star systems and determine whether intelligence or savagery would inherit the galaxy. He checked his weapons one final time and prepared for another night of hunting. Somewhere in the darkness, alien soldiers were preparing for patrol duties, secure in their superior technology and confident in their conquest. They had no idea that evolution's most persistent predator was coming for them, driven by loss and armed with captured weapons and 15 years of training in the art of applied murder. The Shadow Killer was going hunting again. And, this time, he wasn't hunting just for revenge. He was hunting to send a message that would echo across the galaxy. Humanity had received the HFY's declaration of war, and was preparing to respond in the only language the universe seemed to understand. Violence, applied with precision and focused by loss into something approaching art. The aliens had struck first. Now it was humanity's turn. 2 months after first strike, Marcus Chen was no longer alone. The abandoned warehouse in Georgetown had become something between a military briefing room and a terrorist cell meeting space. 18 humans sat around a table improvised from shipping containers, their faces illuminated by the cold glow of salvaged alien displays. They came from every walk of life, former military personnel who had survived the initial strikes, police officers whose departments no longer existed, civilians who had lost everything and found something harder in its place. They called themselves the Unmarked, humans who operated without rank, structure, or official sanction. They had no uniforms, no flag, no government to represent. They had only a shared understanding that the aliens needed to die, and a growing collection of skills for making that happen efficiently. Marcus stood before the group, his appearance changed by 2 months of urban warfare. His hair had grown long and unkempt. Scars marked his hands and face where alien weapons had found their target. His eyes held the flat, predatory look of someone who had killed so often that violence had become routine. Intelligence update, Marcus began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had become legendary among the survivors. The HFY have established 17 major processing centers across North America, designed to catalog and relocate human populations to work camps. Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Phoenix, Denver, Chicago, Detroit, Atlanta, Charlotte, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Houston, Dallas, and Minneapolis. He gestured to the alien holographic display that now served as their primary briefing system, a piece of technology they had learned to operate through trial, error, and the interrogation of captured soldiers. Each center processes approximately 50,000 humans per month. The pattern indicates they intend to reduce Earth's population to manageable levels while preserving enough workers to maintain industrial capability. Standard colonial exploitation model. Sarah Martinez, a former Marine sniper whose husband had died in the Pentagon strike, leaned forward. "What's our target priority?" "All of them," Marcus replied without hesitation. "But we start with the closest and work our way out." The Seattle Center is operational but understaffed. They're having trouble finding human collaborators willing to work with them. "Wonder why," muttered James Kim, a former SWAT officer who had joined after watching aliens execute his entire team. His specialty was close-quarters combat, and he had proven disturbingly effective at killing HFY soldiers in confined spaces. Marcus almost smiled. According to intercepted communications, they're experiencing what they call unprecedented resistance patterns across all occupied territories. Humans aren't behaving like their previous conquest targets. "We're not submitting to authority, not accepting occupation, and not producing the collaborator class they depend on for planetary management." Dr. Elizabeth Carter, a former CDC researcher who now served as their intelligence analyst, spoke up. "Because we're wired differently. Every other species they've conquered appears to be naturally hierarchical. Remove the top of the pyramid, and the rest fall in line. But human social structures are more complex. We're tribal, but we're also individualistic. We can operate in groups or alone, with leadership or without it." Which brings us to tonight's operation, Marcus continued. He manipulated the display to show a three-dimensional representation of the Seattle Processing Center, a fortress-like structure that had been built in the ruins of the King County International Airport. Intelligence indicates they're holding approximately 12,000 human prisoners scheduled for off-world transport in 72 hours. The facility is defended by 200 HFY soldiers, automated defense systems, and orbital support from their command ship. "Sounds like a normal Tuesday," said Ana Rodriguez, a former Navy explosives expert who had lost her entire family in the San Diego strikes. Her specialty was turning civilian chemicals into weapons that could damage alien equipment, and she had become increasingly creative in her applications of applied chemistry. "The goal is not to capture the facility," Marcus clarified. "The goal is to send a message. We're going to kill every alien in that compound, free every human prisoner, and broadcast the entire operation across their communication network so every HFY commander on Earth knows what happens when they try to ship our people off-world." Tom Wilson, a former FBI agent who specialized in electronic warfare, raised his hand. "Broadcasting is doable. I've cracked their encryption protocols, and I can piggyback our signal onto their existing networks. They'll see everything we want them to see." "Casualties?" asked Martinez. Marcus met her eyes directly. "We're going to make this raid look like a military operation conducted by a professional force. Full kit, coordinated tactics, overwhelming firepower applied with precision. They need to understand that human resistance is not random terrorism. It's warfare conducted by people who know what they're doing. And if they respond with orbital bombardment? Dr. Carter asked. Then, they destroy their own facility and kill their own people along with us. Either way, they lose the processing center and 12,000 potential slaves. Either way, we win. The planning session continued for 3 hours, each team member contributing expertise in their specialty. Martinez provided sniper overwatch positions and fields of fire. Kim mapped breach points and close-quarters battle spaces. Rodriguez designed explosive charges that would cripple alien vehicles and equipment. Wilson identified communication nodes and electronic warfare targets. Marcus coordinated their efforts into a comprehensive assault plan, something that would have required weeks of preparation and massive resources under normal military circumstances. But these weren't normal circumstances. They had unlimited motivation, captured alien equipment, and nothing left to lose. Most importantly, they had learned to think like the enemy while retaining human advantages the aliens couldn't match. Speed, aggression, unpredictability, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. The Kethvar fought like they expected to win. Humans fought like they had already lost everything that mattered and were simply settling accounts before they died. The night of the operation, 18 humans moved through the ruins of Seattle like shadows given substance. They wore a mixture of human and alien equipment, carried weapons taken from the dead, and communicated through stolen communication systems that had been modified to prevent detection. Marcus led the assault team while Martinez provided overwatch from a position 3 kilometers away. Her rifle, a hybrid creation built from an alien plasma weapon and human precision optics, could punch through Kethvar armor at ranges that made her functionally invisible to their sensors. Shadow Actual, this is Overwatch. I count 47 thermal signatures in the main complex, estimate 150 total garrison. Patrol patterns consistent with intelligence reports. Confirmed, Overwatch. Assault team is in position. Demo team, status? Anna's voice crackled through their stolen comm system. Charges placed on primary power grid and vehicle depot. Ready to light the candle on your command. EW team, status? Tom's response came with the confidence of someone who had spent 2 months learning alien technology through applied reverse engineering. Communication jammers active, security systems compromised. They're deaf, blind, and cut off from orbital support. Marcus checked his weapon for the final time. The alien plasma rifle felt natural in his hands now, as familiar as the human weapons he had carried for 15 years. More than familiar. Personal. This weapon had been taken from a Kethvar soldier who had been guarding human prisoners in a facility that no longer existed. That soldier was dead. Soon, his friends would join him. All teams, this is Shadow Actual. Operation Homecoming is now active. Execute, execute, execute. The first explosion lit up the night as Rodriguez's charges destroyed the facility's power grid. Emergency lighting activated immediately, but the aliens were already moving in darkness, their night vision systems crippled by electromagnetic pulse weapons salvaged from their own equipment. Martinez's first shot took down a guard tower, the plasma bolt cooking off the ammunition stored inside in a spectacular secondary explosion. Her second shot eliminated the communication array, ensuring that calls for help would go unanswered. Kim's assault team breached the main gate using shaped charges that turned alien armor plating into shrapnel. They moved through the compound like a plague of vengeance, clearing buildings with methodical efficiency, killing every Kethvar soldier they encountered and freeing human prisoners who immediately armed themselves with weapons taken from the dead. Marcus led his team directly to the command center, where Kethvar officers were attempting to coordinate a defense against an attack they didn't understand. They expected human resistance to be poorly organized, badly equipped, and easily suppressed by superior firepower. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that moved like their own elite forces, used their own weapons against them, and demonstrated tactical sophistication that shouldn't have been possible for a conquered species. The facility commander, a Kethvar officer whose armor indicated senior rank, died while trying to activate an orbital distress beacon. Marcus shot him in the head at close range, then activated his own communication device. Attention, Kethvar Dominion. This is Marcus Chen, speaking for humanity. You came to our world expecting easy conquest. You eliminated our leaders thinking this would break our resistance. You were wrong on both counts. He gestured to Tom, who began broadcasting the message across every HFY frequency they had identified. This facility housed 12,000 of our people, scheduled for off-world transport. Your soldiers are all dead. Your prisoners are all free. Your equipment is now ours. This is what happens when you try to steal human beings from their home world. Marcus walked through the command center, the camera following him past the bodies of alien soldiers and the wreckage of their equipment. We are not your previous conquest targets. We are not a hierarchical species that collapses when you eliminate our leadership. We are 8 billion individual predators, each one capable of learning, adapting, and killing. You have awakened something you don't understand and cannot control. He paused before the facility's strategic display, which showed HFY operations across the entire planet. Red dots marking processing centers. Blue dots marking military bases. Green dots marking resource extraction sites. Every red dot on this map is a target. Every blue dot represents aliens who will die. Every green dot marks resources you will never extract. You have 72 hours to begin evacuating Earth. If you're still here after that deadline, we will escalate our response. Marcus deactivated the communication device as explosions echoed through the compound. Anna's charges had turned the vehicle depot into a crater, ensuring that any surviving aliens would be walking home. The operation had taken 4 hours from start to finish. 18 humans had eliminated a garrison of 200 HFY soldiers, freed 12,000 prisoners, destroyed a major processing facility, and broadcast a declaration of war to every alien commander on Earth. 0 human casualties. As dawn broke over the ruins of Seattle, Marcus stood on the roof of the destroyed processing center and watched the last of the freed prisoners disappear into the city. Many would join existing resistance cells. Others would form new ones. Some would simply become individual killers, stalking alien patrols with weapons taken from the dead. It didn't matter how they chose to fight. What mattered was that they would fight, because humanity had reached the point where surrender was no longer psychologically possible. The aliens had taken too much, gone too far, crossed lines that could never be uncrossed. Shadow Actual, this is Overwatch. I've got multiple contacts approaching from the north. Estimate 60 vehicles, mixed armor and air support. Looks like they're bringing friends to the party. Marcus smiled as he watched the alien response force converging on their position. Right on schedule. All teams, execute withdrawal plan Omega. Time to show them how ghosts disappear. The unmarked vanished into Seattle's ruins like smoke dispersing in the wind, leaving behind only dead aliens and a message that would be repeated across the galaxy: humanity was no longer hiding. It was hunting. And the hunt had only just begun. In hidden bases across Earth, similar scenes were playing out as human resistance cells launched coordinated attacks against HFY facilities. The aliens had expected scattered, disorganized opposition that could be easily suppressed. Instead, they found themselves fighting a war against an entire species that had decided death was preferable to slavery. The virus of human resistance was spreading, and it was about to become an epidemic that would consume worlds. Marcus Chen had started as one man with nothing left to lose. Now he was something more dangerous, a teacher, showing his species how to turn their pain into purpose and their grief into weapons. The aliens had made one final miscalculation in their conquest plans. They had assumed that humans would want to survive. They had never considered that humans might prefer revenge. 6 months after first strike, humanity was winning a war that should have been impossible to win. The abandoned NOAA facility on the Olympic Peninsula had been transformed into something between a military command center and a university for applied violence. Banks of alien computers, captured and reprogrammed, displayed tactical data from resistance cells across 6 continents. Human technicians who had learned to read HFY script worked alongside former military officers who had adapted guerrilla tactics to interstellar warfare. Marcus stood before the main display, his appearance further changed by months of continuous operations. The scars were more numerous now, and his right arm bore the distinctive burn patterns of Kethvar plasma weapons. But his eyes remained sharp, predatory, focused on objectives that stretched beyond Earth's atmosphere. Global resistance status, he announced to the assembled cell leaders. The room held representatives from 47 different groups, ranging from former Special Forces operators to civilian militia who had learned warfare through necessity and applied it with frightening effectiveness. Dr. Carter manipulated the display to show Earth from orbit, color-coded to indicate resistance activity. Large portions of the planet glowed red, indicating areas where human resistance had made Kethvar occupation impossible to maintain. Confirmed liberation of processing centers in Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Denver, Chicago, Detroit, and Boston, she reported. Estimated enemy casualties exceed 15,000. Captured equipment includes 700 plasma weapons, 200 vehicles, 43 communication systems, and enough alien technology to reverse engineer basic manufacturing capabilities. Casualties? Asked Colonel Davidson, a former Air Force officer who had survived the destruction of Nellis AFB and now coordinated resistance activities across the Southwest. Human casualties remain minimal, Dr. Carter continued. We're losing approximately 50 personnel per month against confirmed enemy losses of over 1,000. Exchange ratio is 20-1 in our favor. Murmurs of satisfaction echoed through the room. In 6 months, Earth's resistance had evolved from scattered survivors into something approaching a military force. But Marcus knew the real victory wasn't in casualty counts or captured equipment. The real victory was what the aliens were doing in response. Intelligence update, Marcus announced, activating a new display that showed Kethvar fleet positions throughout Earth's solar system. Tom, give them the latest. Tom Wilson, now scarred by months of dangerous electronic warfare operations, stepped forward. His expertise in alien communication systems had evolved into something approaching artistic mastery, allowing him to intercept and decode Kethvar messages in real time. The enemy is requesting reinforcements from their home territories, Tom reported. 3 separate battle fleets, totaling approximately 200 warships, are en route to Earth. Estimated arrival in 4 to 6 weeks. The room fell silent. 200 warships represented enough firepower to sterilize Earth's surface multiple times over. It was the kind of force the Kethvar Dominion used to pacify entire star systems that had proven particularly resistant to conquest. However, Tom continued with a slight smile, they're also requesting permission to withdraw from Earth entirely. The local commander has filed 17 separate reports recommending evacuation and orbital bombardment rather than continued ground operations. Which tells us what? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. It tells us they're scared, replied Martinez, who had become the de facto leader of sniper operations across the Pacific Northwest. They came here expecting another easy conquest, and instead they've been fighting a war unlike anything they've ever encountered. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. But it tells us something else, something more important. It tells us that other species in their empire are paying attention to what's happening on Earth. He activated another display, this one showing intercepted communications from across Kethvar territory. Messages in languages that human computers couldn't yet translate, but patterns that suggested widespread unrest. Intelligence indicates that subject species in at least 6 Kethvar-controlled systems have begun armed resistance movements modeled on human tactics. The virus is spreading beyond Earth. The implications hung in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Humanity's resistance wasn't just about Earth anymore. It was becoming a template for rebellion that could destabilize the entire Dominion. Which brings us to tonight's operation, Marcus continued, manipulating the display to show a 3-dimensional representation of the Kethvar command ship in orbit above Seattle. The DNV overwhelming victory is a Kethvar dreadnought carrying approximately 5,000 crew members and serving as the primary command center for North American operations. It's heavily shielded, armed with weapons that can sterilize continents, and positioned in high orbit to avoid surface-based attacks. Sounds impossible, muttered Rodriguez, though her tone suggested professional interest rather than discouragement. It would be impossible for a normal military force, Marcus agreed. But we're not a normal military force. We're a species that has spent the last 6 months learning everything there is to know about HFY technology, psychology, and tactical doctrine. And we've discovered something interesting. He zoomed the display to show the ship's docking bays and support craft. The overwhelming victory requires constant resupply from the surface. Food, water, atmospheric processing chemicals, replacement equipment. They may be advanced, but they're still bound by logistics. Dr. Carter stepped forward. We've identified the primary supply convoy schedule. Every 72 hours, a fleet of transport ships travels from Earth's surface to resupply the command vessel. 24 ships, lightly armed, carrying everything the dreadnought needs to maintain operations. Our intelligence indicates that these transport ships are minimally crewed, Tom added. The HFY consider Earth to be a secured area, so they've reduced security protocols to maximize cargo capacity. Marcus felt the familiar surge of anticipation that preceded complex operations. We're going to capture one of those transports, use it to infiltrate the command ship, and turn the overwhelming victory into humanity's first orbital weapons platform. The silence that followed was profound. What Marcus was proposing wasn't just impossible by conventional military standards. It was insane. A handful of humans attempting to capture an alien dreadnought using captured equipment and improvised tactics. Sir, Colonel Davidson said carefully, even if we could somehow capture a transport ship and reach the dreadnought, we'd be facing 5,000 enemy soldiers on their own ship, surrounded by defensive systems we barely understand. True, Marcus replied. Which is why we're not going to fight them. We're going to poison them. Dr. Carter activated a new display showing detailed analysis of HFY biological requirements. 6 months of studying alien physiology has taught us how their metabolism works. They're vulnerable to several Earth-based toxins that are harmless to humans. We can synthesize a nerve agent using alien atmospheric processing equipment that will incapacitate their entire crew within minutes of introduction to their life support systems. Chemical warfare, Davidson said flatly. Against invaders who murdered billions of our people, Marcus replied without emotion. Yes, chemical warfare. Applied with extreme prejudice and maximum effect. Ana Rodriguez leaned forward, her explosives expertise now expanded to include alien chemical systems. I can modify their atmospheric processors to disperse the agent throughout the ship. Once it's in their air supply, they'll have minutes before complete nervous system shutdown. And, once we control their command ship, asked Martinez. Marcus's smile was terrible to behold. Then, we use their own weapons to destroy every other HFY ship in Earth orbit. Then, we broadcast a message to their home territories explaining that Earth is no longer conquered territory. It's a human military base, and any alien ship that approaches our system will be destroyed by their own technology operated by very angry primates. The plan was audacious beyond reason, requiring precision timing, flawless execution, and enormous luck. It was also, Marcus realized, exactly the kind of operation that humans excelled at, impossible tasks accomplished through applied creativity and the willingness to risk everything for victory. The next 72 hours were spent in intensive preparation. Equipment was gathered, modified, and tested. Personnel were selected based on specific skill sets and psychological profiles. Contingency plans were developed for every conceivable failure mode. Marcus led a team of 12 specialists, each one representing months of experience fighting alien technology with human cunning. They had become something new, post-human operators capable of functioning in environments that would have killed their pre-invasion selves. The transport ship DNV Prosperity's end followed its scheduled approach vector to the command vessel, its cargo hold filled with supplies and its minimal crew unaware that their ship had been captured 6 hours earlier. The real crew was dead, replaced by humans wearing stolen HFY armor and using voice modulators to mimic alien speech patterns. Transport 774 requesting docking clearance, Tom said in fluent HFY, his voice electronically altered to match the ship's previous commander. Clearance granted, 774. Proceed to docking bay 12. Maintain standard approach vector. The overwhelming victory grew larger in their viewports as they approached, a kilometer-long weapon of conquest that had subjugated 17 star systems. Its hull bristled with defensive weaponry, sensor arrays, and communication systems that coordinated HFY operations across half the galaxy. In 12 hours, it would become humanity's flagship. The docking procedure was routine, automated systems guiding their captured transport into the dreadnought's cargo bay. Marcus watched alien crew members preparing to unload their supplies, unaware that they were about to participate in the most audacious military operation in human history. Phase 1 complete, Marcus whispered into his comm system. "We're aboard. Beginning infiltration." The team moved through the ship like ghosts, using stolen access codes and forged identification to reach critical systems. Anna reached the atmospheric processing center and began installing her chemical modifications. Tom accessed the communication systems and prepared to broadcast humanity's message to the galaxy. The assault team positioned themselves near key defensive positions. Marcus made his way to the ship's command center, where HFY officers coordinated the occupation of Earth with calm efficiency. They had no idea that their ship had already been infiltrated, that their life support systems were being modified, that their entire command structure was about to be eliminated by a species they considered primitively violent. Phase 2 initiated, Anna reported. Atmospheric contamination beginning now. Estimate 3 minutes to full effect. Marcus activated his breathing apparatus and watched the first alien officers begin to show signs of neurological distress. Confusion, loss of coordination, difficulty breathing. Within minutes, the entire command crew was unconscious or dead. Ship secured, Marcus announced. Tom, initiate broadcast. All teams, prepare for orbital combat operations. The message that went out across HFY communication networks was simple and direct: Earth was no longer under alien occupation. Humanity had captured the enemy flagship and was prepared to use it against any force that threatened their world. The response was immediate. HFY destroyers throughout Earth orbit began converging on the overwhelming Victory's position, their weapons charging for what they assumed would be a quick battle against human insurgents armed with primitive technology. They were wrong. The overwhelming Victory's main weapons, now operated by humans who had spent 6 months studying alien technology, began engaging enemy ships with devastating effect. Each shot represented months of human lives lost, billions of deaths that demanded payment in alien blood. One by one, HFY ships died in the darkness of space, their hulks tumbling toward Earth's atmosphere or drifting away into the void. The aliens had brought superior technology to a fight against superior hatred, and hatred was proving more effective than advanced engineering. All enemy vessels in Earth orbit destroyed, reported the human weapons officer who had once been a Navy fire control technician. Orbital space secured. Marcus stood in the command center of humanity's first starship, surrounded by alien technology that had been turned against its creators. Outside the viewports, Earth rotated slowly, blue and beautiful and free. But this was only the beginning. The reinforcement fleets were still coming, and beyond them lay the vast HFY dominion with its hundreds of billions of subjugated beings. Marcus opened a communication channel to resistance cells across Earth. This is Shadow Actual aboard the human starship Retribution. Orbital space has been secured. We have captured alien shipbuilding technology and technical databases. Begin Phase 3, we're going to build a fleet. Humanity had learned to make weapons from alien equipment, tactics from alien mistakes, and victory from alien arrogance. Now they were going to learn something new: how to take their war beyond Earth's atmosphere and carry it to the enemy's home territories. The virus of human resistance had infected one world. Soon, it would spread across the galaxy like a plague of liberation, teaching every enslaved species the most important lesson humanity had to offer: sometimes the only response to genocide is genocide in return. The aliens had struck first. But humans were going to strike last. 1 year after first strike, the human liberation fleet emerged from the shadows between stars and began the systematic extermination of the HFY Dominion. The bridge of the HLS Retribution had been redesigned with human ergonomics in mind, though the underlying alien technology remained intact. Banks of captured and modified HFY computers displayed tactical information from across 17 star systems, each one representing a world that humanity intended to liberate or see burned to ash. Marcus stood before the primary display, no longer the grief-stricken operative who had started this war in the ruins of Seattle. His appearance had changed again, scarred by months of ship-to-ship combat and marked by the weight of commanding humanity's transformation from victims to predators. His uniform was a hybrid creation, human military aesthetics merged with alien functionality, practical and intimidating in equal measure. "Fleet status report," he commanded, his voice carrying across communication channels that connected 57 human starships scattered throughout Kethvar space. Captain Sarah Martinez, who had transitioned from sniper to starship commander with the same deadly precision she brought to every task, responded from the HLS Vengeance. "All ships report ready for final approach. Target system defenses appear minimal. Intelligence suggests they still haven't adapted to our tactical doctrine." "Because they can't adapt," replied Dr. Carter from her position at the intelligence station. Her expertise in Kethvar psychology had evolved into something approaching prophetic ability to predict alien responses. "Their entire species is built around hierarchical thinking. They can't comprehend an enemy that operates through distributed command structures and individual initiative." Marcus nodded, though his attention was focused on the tactical display showing the Kethvar home system. 3 planets, 17 orbital stations, and the largest concentration of alien military force in the galaxy. It was also the location of approximately 40 billion Kethvar civilians who had never set foot on Earth but whose government had chosen to commit genocide against humanity. "Tom, communications status?" Tom Wilson, now bearing the scars of a year spent turning alien technology against its creators, activated the fleet-wide broadcast system. "All human ships are linked. We also have connections to resistance cells in 6 liberated systems and 3 worlds currently under siege. The galaxy is watching." The galaxy was indeed watching. Over the past year, humanity's war against the Kethvar had become something larger than conquest or revenge. It had become a demonstration that advanced technological civilizations could be defeated by smaller, more aggressive species willing to pay any price for victory. Humanity had paid that price in full. Earth's population had been reduced from 8 billion to approximately 3 billion during the initial invasion and subsequent liberation campaigns. Entire cities had been evacuated to provide workers for hastily constructed shipyards. Children grew up learning alien languages and technologies instead of traditional human subjects. The planet had been transformed into a military-industrial complex dedicated to a single goal: the complete elimination of the Kethvar Dominion. "Admiral," said Commander Rodriguez from the HLS Vindication, using the rank that human forces had bestowed on Marcus despite his consistent refusal to accept formal military hierarchy. "We're receiving surrender offers from the outer system defense platforms. They're requesting terms." Marcus felt something cold and final settle in his chest. After a year of warfare that had consumed worlds and exterminated entire fleets, the moment of ultimate decision had arrived. The Kethvar were offering to surrender, to negotiate, to find some accommodation that would allow both species to survive. "Decline their surrender," Marcus said without hesitation. "All ships, commence final attack. Target priority is military installations first, then orbital infrastructure, then planetary defense systems. Leave civilian targets for last, but make it clear that we intend to engage them as well." "Sir," Colonel Davidson said from his position aboard the HLS Justice, "if we proceed with attacks on civilian targets, we're talking about genocide. The complete extermination of their species." "Yes," Marcus replied, his voice carrying across the communication network to every human ship in the fleet. "We are. The Kethvar Dominion has conquered 17 star systems and enslaved or exterminated hundreds of billions of sentient beings. They came to Earth intending to reduce humanity to a manageable population of slaves. They have earned extinction." He activated the fleet-wide communication system, his words reaching every human aboard the 57 ships that represented humanity's response to alien aggression. "1 year ago, these creatures murdered our world and our families because they thought we were weak. They were wrong about the weak part, but they were right about one thing: we are different from every other species they've encountered. We don't surrender. We don't submit. We don't forgive." The first human ships entered the outer edge of the Kethvar home system, their weapons already charging for the battle that would determine whether intelligence or hatred would inherit the galaxy. The Kethvar Dominion ends today. Every alien ship, every orbital station, every military installation, and every planetary defense system will be destroyed. Any Kethvar civilians who wish to live will be relocated to designated planets under human supervision, where they will learn what it means to be a conquered species. Marcus paused, looking out at the stars that had once seemed infinite and mysterious, now mapped and marked for human expansion. But, understand this, we are not here to conquer. We are here to ensure that what happened to Earth never happens to anyone else. If that requires us to become monsters, then we become monsters. If that requires us to commit genocide, then we commit genocide. If that requires us to become the thing that other species fear in the darkness between stars, then that is what we become. The first engagement began as human ships encountered Kethvar defense platforms. The aliens fought with the desperation of a species facing extinction, but desperation was insufficient against humans who had spent a year learning to turn alien advantages into weaknesses. Plasma weapons designed for ship-to-ship combat were overwhelmed by human fighters using swarm tactics adapted from Earth's own military history. Defensive shields calibrated to stop conventional weapons failed against modified alien technology operated by species that had learned to improvise solutions to impossible problems. One by one, the defense platforms fell silent. Outer system secured, reported Martinez. Proceeding to middle system targets. Enemy fleet is massing around their primary world, approximately 300 ships. Confirmed. All ships, implement Protocol Omega. Target their command structure and watch them fragment. Protocol Omega was humanity's answer to Kethvar hierarchical weakness. Instead of engaging the enemy fleet directly, human ships used captured communication systems to identify and eliminate Kethvar command vessels first. Without coordination, the alien fleet would dissolve into individual ships fighting separate battles against an enemy that specialized in turning coordination disadvantages into tactical opportunities. The battle for the Kethvar home system lasted 18 hours and ended with the complete destruction of alien military capability. 300 Kethvar warships became debris drifting between planets that would soon be under human control. But the war's final phase was yet to come. Marcus stood on the bridge of the Retribution as the human fleet took positions around Kethvar Prime, the species' homeworld where 40 billion aliens lived in cities that had never known bombardment, never experienced the fear that their government had inflicted on countless other worlds. Admiral, Dr. Carter said quietly, we're receiving communication from planetary leadership. They're offering unconditional surrender, complete disarmament, reparations for Earth, and submission to human authority. Marcus studied the planet below, its blue-green surface unmarked by the violence that had consumed 17 star systems. 40 billion lives hung in the balance, civilians who had trusted their government to protect them from consequences they had never imagined. Counteroffer, Marcus said, his voice carrying to every human ship in orbit. Complete evacuation of the planet within 72 hours. Any Kethvar who remain after that deadline will be considered combatants and dealt with accordingly. Sir, Davidson said, mass evacuation of 40 billion beings is physically impossible in 72 hours. I know, Marcus replied. Tom, open a channel to Earth. The communication link connected him to humanity's homeworld, where 3 billion survivors were rebuilding from the ashes of alien aggression. Children who had lost parents. Parents who had lost children. An entire species marked by trauma that would echo through generations. This is Admiral Marcus Chen, commanding the Human Liberation Fleet. We have achieved complete tactical control of the Kethvar home system. Enemy military capability has been eliminated. We now face the final decision of this war. He paused, looking at the world below where 40 billion aliens waited for judgment. The Kethvar Dominion is responsible for the deaths of approximately 5 billion human beings and the enslavement or extermination of hundreds of billions of sentient creatures across 17 star systems. We have the capability to ensure that they never again threaten any species with conquest or genocide. The response came from every human settlement on Earth, a single word, repeated in every language, carrying the weight of a species that had learned the ultimate cost of mercy toward those who showed none. Finish it. Marcus closed the communication link and activated the fleet's weapons systems. 57 human starships, armed with technology stolen from their enemies and powered by hatred refined into purpose, prepared to write the final chapter of the HFY Dominion. All ships, Marcus announced, commence planetary bombardment. Target priority is population centers first, then industrial facilities, then anything else that moves. Make it quick, but make it complete. The first plasma bolts reached the planet's surface 17 minutes later. Cities that had stood for millennia became craters of molten glass. Forests burned. Oceans boiled. An entire world died in the span of 6 hours, its surface rendered uninhabitable by weapons its own species had designed for conquering others. When the bombardment ended, Kethvar Prime was a dead world orbiting a star that now illuminated only human ships. Planetary sterilization complete, reported Martinez, her voice devoid of emotion. No remaining life signs detected. Marcus stood in the silence that followed, surrounded by the technology of a species that had thought itself immune to the consequences of genocide. Around him, human officers who had spent a year learning to kill aliens with industrial efficiency prepared for the next phase of operations, the systematic elimination of Kethvar presence throughout their former empire. Fleet orders, Marcus announced. We proceed to the secondary colonies. 17 worlds, approximately 2 billion Kethvar civilians total. Same protocol. Offer evacuation, then sterilize any planet they refuse to abandon. What about the subject species? Dr. Carter asked. The billions of beings the Kethvar enslaved? Liberation, Marcus replied. We free them all. We give them captured Kethvar technology. We teach them what we learned about fighting advanced civilizations with primitive resources and unlimited hatred. We turn them into us. The implications hung in the air like the afterglow of a dying world. Humanity wasn't just eliminating the Kethvar Dominion. It was creating a galaxy full of species that had learned the most important lesson Earth had to teach. Sometimes survival required becoming something monstrous. 6 months later, the last Kethvar colony world fell silent under human bombardment. An entire species that had conquered 17 star systems and enslaved hundreds of billions of beings had been reduced to scattered refugees hiding in the darkness between stars, waiting for human ships to find them and finish what Earth had started. The galaxy was free of the Kethvar Dominion, but it was no longer free of humanity. Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Retribution, now orbiting a world that had once been a Kethvar colony and was now home to a liberated species learning to build starships from captured alien technology. In the distance, construction vessels worked on humanity's first permanent orbital station outside Earth's solar system, a fortress from which human expansion would continue into the dark. Behind him, the door slid open. Sarah Martinez entered, her uniform now bearing the insignia of humanity's second admiral, commander of the fleets that would carry human influence to every corner of the galaxy. Recon fleet has returned from the Outer Rim, she reported. 7 more advanced civilizations detected, all showing signs of aggressive expansion tendencies. Marcus nodded without surprise. Threat assessment? Preliminary analysis suggests they're all potentially hostile to less advanced species. Similar conquest patterns to the Kethvar, though with different technological approaches. Marcus turned from the viewport, his scarred face reflecting the light of alien stars that humanity now claimed by right of conquest. Recommendations? Same protocol we used for the Kethvar, Martinez replied without hesitation. Preemptive elimination before they become threats to Earth or our client species. Marcus felt the familiar surge of anticipation that preceded complex operations. Humanity had learned the ultimate lesson about survival in a hostile galaxy. The only safe enemy was a dead enemy. The only secure peace was one built on the bones of every species arrogant enough to threaten Earth's children. Prepare the fleets, Marcus commanded. We have work to do. The human expansion into the galaxy continued, driven by lessons learned in the ashes of Seattle and tempered by the understanding that mercy was a luxury no species could afford when facing extinction. Earth's children carried with them a simple message to any civilization foolish enough to threaten others with conquest: humanity had awakened, and it was very, very angry. The aliens had struck first. They had taught humanity that the universe was a place where only monsters survived. Now humanity would teach the galaxy what monsters really look like when they decided to stop pretending to be civilized. The Commanderless War had ended. The human galaxy had begun.